main things that generally a student misses out when they are sitting for an interview. The most common advices that you get as you're appearing for an interview would actually be stand straight, look at your posture, see how you're communicating, see the way in which you're presenting yourself. Am I right? Is that the most common advices that you get? But many times, the one thing that people generally miss out is the inner core reason why students generally have that kind of personality within them. So today in this session, let's say in the first 30 minutes, I'm going to give you a very clear insight into how you can transform yourself into someone who can win a job. Let's say, as you're here, you're all students. So ultimately, in the next few months, you're going to be transformed, not from a student to a professional. And how you represent yourself as a professional is the only thing that will give you an edge in whichever company you choose to work with. Because any career that you're choosing today is not something that will be with you just for the next few months or the next few years. You're at least seeing a few decades in whichever industry you're choosing. So ensure to keep your positioning right from day one, right from the day when you're meeting the interviewer. So, first of all, let's talk about the major things that generally go in a person's mind, okay? So let's say, we're all preparing for an interview. And as you're preparing, the first thing that comes to your mind is, what will the interviewer think about me? What is the image that I will present to themselves? Will I get a job? Are these the thoughts in your mind? Yes? So when you're getting these thoughts, inside your mind, you'll be playing a lot of scenarios with respect to, let's say, the many times you messed up in your assignments, or the way in which everyone in a company are, and generally there is this thought inside our mind where you see yourself as lower to the other person. And when you see that way, your inner physiology changes completely. Let's say, all of you are sitting here, but when I see each one of you, it will take around 5 to 10 seconds for me to judge what mood is the student is in. Just based on, let's say, the position in which you're sitting, let's say the straightness of your spine, the way in which your facial reactions are, and all of that. And if I am able to judge it in 5 to 10 seconds, your interviewer will be able to do it in 2 to 3 seconds. Because that's what they've been doing for a very long time. Now this is what generally people tell you to change. They tell you to work on your posture and all of that. But one thing they do not tell you is, why is it coming out? So today I'm going to introduce you to two distinct, let's say, theories. The first one pertaining to personality. So generally for a human being, there are two different personalities. Number one, the one that's inside you, which we call as an internal personality or an internal narrative, and the second one that's external. Now whatever I can see from here about you, that's an external personality. So that's what we call as physiology. Now what is a physiology? It's how a human body represents itself. So let's say if I'm confident, I'm happy, and it shows in the face, it shows in the posture, it shows in the way I walk. But let's say if I'm anxious, or if I'm angry, or if I'm sad, that again shows in the way in which I walk. So our emotions, which is our psychology, directly influences our physiology. So this is why, generally when you are appearing for an interview, the nervousness that you carry, the self-doubts that you carry about yourself, the insecure feeling that you have is clearly represented in your physiology. And that is something that you should change from the core of it. And that is what we are going to see in this session today. So how many of you are interested to know more? Come on, give me a yes. For the strength of this class, I think the voice is a little malnourished. Okay. So, as we speak about the internal physiology, which I mentioned about the psychology and the physiology. So let's say, first question first. Why do you feel insecure when you're appearing for an interview? Generally, I would not call that emotion as an insecurity, it's more of an intimidation. When you see a panel of recruiters sitting in front of you, we often feel intimidated. Now let me narrate this with you with a personal experience that I have, because I personally believe more than lessons or theories or any textbook thing, experience teaches the most. So when I first appeared for my interview, so I was in a room with the people from, let's say, the company Derby. So it was a very prominent company, and as I was there, I had a lot of thought. Let's say the architecture was phenomenal, and their office was very well furnished, and the executives there, they were of top-notch sophistication, the way in which they spoke and everything. So as I student just like all of you. In my classroom, I was not a straight A student. So at that time, the kind of thoughts I had in my mind was, wow, this place is so good. Am I worth that place? Will they select me here? The people here, they speak so fluently. Can I actually belong in that crowd? So as I walked in with those thoughts and as I sat in front of the panel, I had my resume, I had everything there. But for every question that they asked, though I knew the answer wouldn't come out of my mouth. I was just there, staring at them, a little nervous, my hands were in knots, I was not in the right posture, my eyes are here and there, and the image that I conveyed to the recruiters was not fine. And as I walked out of there, I know for sure I would not get the job. That's something that I knew very clearly. Now why is it because of the questions, because of the resume? Not really. But it's completely because of how I portrayed myself in that position. So later on, let's say years later, when I look back at that particular incident, the one thing that I could see was, it's not just my inferiority complex that was portrayed, but I thought the person in front of me is much more superior to me, that in front of them I would be an inferior person. Now this is a feeling most of you will have in a job interview. Because let's say the illusion that we have about professionals, the way in which we see them, everything is like they are here and I am here. And when you get that thought deep inside your mind, after every job interview, see, chances are the first few interviews that you take up, you might not be at your best performance. And that will lay as a demotivation for your next interviews. So for that to not happen, I want you to think right from the first interview that you're attending. Every professional that you're meeting are 40. Let's say I'm here in this stage with you and you're there. Few years back when I was in the audience, I would think the person on the stage has achieved something or they are better than me because I cannot be in the same stage in that way and speak. That's a thought that I used to have when I was an audience. But when I just came up, let's say, as we have more opportunities and as we advance in the career, the only thing that is different between the person in the stage and the person in the audience is the years they put into experience. Similarly, every professional that you see who's taking a job interview, they are maybe 5 years ahead of you, 10 years ahead of you, or 15 years ahead of you. So years of experience is what differentiates your expertise versus theirs. So for that, they deserve your respect. You should completely respect the person in front of you, but that doesn't mean you should look at yourself from an inferior point of view to the professional. Because one thing is, every person has their own fears. Every person has their own faultiness. No one is perfect. So when they see you, even in your, let's say, most authentic form, if you represent yourself as just you are without any sugarcoating, that will not be the reason for them to reject you. So, here another thing that I would like to tell you. The first thing is, do not look to them as your superiors, but look to them as people who are advanced than you, who are 5 to 6 years, let's say, experienced than you. So that experience is what you are learning from them. Now the second thing that I want you to see is, let's say, when you're taking up interviews, another major perspective that comes into play is how will you answer the questions. So now this is partly technical and majorly about how you're thinking in the moment. So as you're thinking in the moment, let's say generally people judge you based on how you're answering. So every time they ask a question, don't just answer it in, let's say, a word or a sentence. Those are places where you can express yourself. So maybe add a few more pointers to it. Explain yourself in paragraph, because that's the thing that many recruiters actually look forward to. When the professional whom they are interviewing is able to speak a lot about themselves. So that's another major thing. Now, you might ask me this question. See, it's all easy to say, but how do we actually get there? How do we overcome that insecurity, or how do we overcome the inferiority complex in there? How do we see them as an equal? So for that, like I mentioned before, the psychology and the physiology plays a major role, right? So as much as we are modifying our psychology, the way in which you change your physiology matters. And to feel confident about yourself, you should first know if you're standing straight and when your body is firm, when you're very clear that I will do it, that's when you get the energy. So let's say if I'm just just walking around this hall like, you know what, there's nothing here, nothing much to do, what is there? You will feel the same way. But when you are so sure of yourself, the way in which your voice comes out, the way in which you are seeing the other person differs so rapidly. And when that happens, the energy that you carry is what your receiver will carry as well. So if you're going to an interview feeling insecure, chances are the recruiter will feel so insecure about hiring you. Because as humans, we are consistently giving signals, not just through what we speak, but through this invisible energy around us. So every time before you walk into the room, before you prepare for your interview, just take your superhero pose. Just for 3 breaths, and trust me, you'll see a very good difference. Because that's your mind communicating to your body subconsciously that I am ready to save my own world. You don't need to save the rest of the world, you just need to save yours. And for that you need to be ready. Now, let's look at another thing. Have you heard of affirmations? How many of you know what affirmations are? Any of you raise your hands? Any of you know what an affirmation is? Okay, I'll explain it to you. Every time our mind believes what we repeatedly hear. Let's say if you're in a place that consistently keeps complaining and keeps saying this is not right, that's not right, you will naturally feel nothing in your life is right. Because your brain cannot invent things, it will take the things around it and it will cook its own version based on your perspectives, based on how you grew up and all of that. So when your brain is working that way, your brain needs reason to believe that you can do it. Ideally, let's say as of this scenario right now, with everything that's happening around you, but with you hearing all the information about how the interviews have been, how the job postings have been, how the economy is and all of that, chances are you are still thinking, the chance of me getting a job with a good pay, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about it. How many of you think that way? How many of you are not so confident about the salary that you would be getting? How many of you are not so confident about the job? I can see your faces, you don't need to raise your hands. Just ask yourself this question. Because ultimately, what you think right now is what your mind is going to believe, and what your mind is believing is what is going to come out. So affirmations are the way in which you're going to make your mind believe that there's something that's right. Something is going to be okay. It's a way in which you tell yourself or you keep reminding your mind that everything is okay. And in turn what happens is your mind will start manifesting the same for you. If you just Google out these affirmations or manifestation, you will see the world's most influential people have been using this day in and day out. Maybe for the bigger things. But it all starts with the very little things that you can. Imagine walking into an interviewing room where you're so confident about yourself and you just tell the other person, probably the recruiter, you're saying, I'm so confident about this and I know I'll do a good job. And I also know you cannot find someone better than me. They will be amazed, not by your technical abilities or anything, but by just that confidence that you display. Because right now, the most deficit in this corporate world is the confidence that you can carry. You're going to be in this profession for the next few decades. So think of that. If you're going to be a CEO of a company, or if you're going to be, let's say, if you're even saying from a very small level, if you're being a branch manager of a company, how would you want that person to be? Do you want that person to double think themselves, to second guess themselves, or do you want them to feel insecure? That's the question I would want you to ask. So affirmations are the way wherein you create a persona for yourself. So let me explain this to you. I want all of you to do this activity by today. Say yes, will you do it? Yes. Great, okay. So I want you to create a persona, okay. Now you are here. This is your version. Let's say 3 years ago, when you joined this university, you are a whole different person, agree or not? You've changed so much in just 3 years. So, what would it be, or how would that change be 3 years later? Imagine a future version for yourself. Let's say you're in the fanciest job that you could imagine. You're in a place that you wanted to go. You're in a city that you wanted to live in. You're in a job role that you think will influence yourself and the people around you. So what is the job role that you have in mind? What does the future persona look like? Have a clear image of that person. And when you're having that image, it should look like, let's say, in this scenario, this is how this person will dress out. This is the attitude attitude the person will carry. These are the words that the person will be hearing. For example, 5 years before, when I was thinking of this, or when I was hearing of this for the first time, and everything that I'm telling you right now is completely based on, let's say, what the world's best coaches teach you. Because I took the time to go through multiple mentorships just to know what creates the most winning personalities in the world. And all of these are something that every leader actually follows. So, hear me out when I say this. Create a future persona. And that persona, what do you think are the words that they will be constantly hearing in their ears? Let's say it can be things like, wow, you did a wonderful job. I didn't know how you convinced that person, but this deal is through. Or something like, your team did a fantastic job. You're a great leader. Or something like, the product that you designed is super optimized. We never expected such a prototype to come in. Or something like, let's say, you're winning the best employee of the award. Anything, any word that you would want your future self to hear. Write those down. Those are your affirmations. So every single day, as you're going to the job interview, close your eyes for just 2 minutes and think about it. How would it be if these are the words that are ringing in your head from the company that has just come to hire you? Now that will give you the confidence that you need to ace the job interview. Everything else comes secondary. See, every aptitude test that you clear in will take you one step closer to getting that interview. And the skills you learned in all these 4 years will help you to answer the technical rounds of that interview. But how you present yourself is what will get you the job. Because ultimately every other things are trainable, but becoming a better person is something that only you can do. So never take that power out of you. So every single day, work on those affirmations. Right from today, create that future persona. So every time when you think of the outfits that they are going to wear, every time when you think of the attitude that they are going to have, every time that you think, maybe I'm not worth it, or maybe I don't know how I will do it, or I am not sure if I'll pass this. Think of that person. Because who you are today will not take you where you wanted to be, but you can build that persona that will go there. And that person is already in that best self of yours. So prepare yourself for that. Okay. Alright guys, so with this I wish you all the best for your job interviews, and be prepared by optimizing your psychology as well as your physiology. Never forget the superhero pose and never forget your future self, because that self is waiting out there for you. So right now, you will be continuing your let's say next technical session on aptitudes. So I wish you all the best. Have a great day.